If Kim Kardashian told you to jump off the bridge, would you do it? No, well, something similar worldwide is happening, and I'll show you. This bloke is now $15 a kilo. And why? Because a famous person has now started to do celery juices. And they're doing celery juices to cure psoriasis. Now, I've had psoriasis, and effectively you have it for life. It's a genetic skin condition that is triggered for a whole host of things. And I wanted to get into the medical reasoning why celery juicing does nothing for your skin and in fact can potentially kill you. Okay, so celery is being touted as the new superfood, and that's largely been attributed to the video that Kim Kardashian put out where a medical medium told her to use celery juices to cure her psoriasis. I'll get on to psoriasis in a minute. Celery contains a thing called luteolin, and that's a flavonoid, and it's been shown to have anti-inflammatory properties. So you've seen me talk about inflammation in previous videos, and to reduce chronic inflammation is a good thing. So if you can take something that's going to reduce chronic inflammation, then that's going to help with pain. It might help lower blood pressure, and it can improve some cancer treatments, but it's not a superfood. So as I said, luteolin is a flavonoid, and there are 4 other flavonoids, making 5 in total. So there's myricetin, there's quercetin, there's camphorol, and there's apigenin. So these anti-inflammatory flavonoids are found in 62 plant types. Fruits are dominated by quercetin, and veggies have a variety of all of the flavonoids. But you could eat broccoli and apples and chili and cabbage and onion leaves, French beans, carrots, white radishes, garlic, balimbi fruit, French peas, guava, caddock. I think you get the idea, and still get the same intake of flavonoids as you would just with consuming celery. So let me get on to psoriasis. Psoriasis is an autoimmune disease which is really closely linked with inflammation. If you're having a flare-up, then your inflammation, your inflammatory markers are going to be sky high. And so anything that you can do to reduce that chronic inflammation is going to help. Psoriasis affects between 2 and 3% of the population, and it's heritable. That means that it's passed on through your genes, and there's some talk about whether it's dominant or whether it's recessive related to the gene. So if your mother has psoriasis and your father doesn't, if it's dominant, you will get psoriasis. If it's recessive, you won't, because your father will pass on your good genes. But there is evidence to support both, and it's complicated, the amount of genes that are responsible for you having psoriasis. Now, in saying that, between 60 and 90% of people have a hereditary psoriasis. And there's another clincher. There is a thing called psoriatic arthritis. So if you are prone to psoriasis, or you've had psoriasis at any time in your life, it is possible, there is a chance that you will also get psoriatic arthritis. So don't neglect those aches and pains in your fingers. If you've got psoriasis and you get aches and pains in your fingers or your hips or your knees, go and see the doctor. You may have the arthritic component of psoriasis. Now let me tell you a little bit about psoriasis. I have psoriasis. And it got to the point where I would wear long sleeve clothes in the middle of summer on a stinking 40-degree day because I was too embarrassed to show the psoriasis on my arms. And it went all down my arms. It seems to present more with aggravation. So I worked in an office and I worked on a keyboard, so where the desk was rubbing, I had lines across my wrist of psoriasis. It looked like I'd sliced my wrists. I had patches all along here where my arms had rubbed along the desk. It was on the back of my knees where my legs were crossed. It was on my bottom where I sat on the chair. I had dots of it all over my abdomen and my chest. I felt like a leper. I understand Kim Kardashian's absolute desire to get rid of this. Now, mine was self-esteem driven. Her face is her livelihood. If all of a sudden she can't market her face, then her income goes down the drain. And I get it. I really get it. And so I'm more than angry with this snake oil peddler for telling her that drinking celery juice is going to cure her. I tried everything under the sun. I didn't have so much as a soap flake in the house. I washed with non-soap washes. I used vitamin D cream. I used steroid cream. I bathed in coal tar preparations. And none of it worked. I was washing my bedding 2, 3, 4 times a week because of the amount of lotions and potions I was applying to myself, and none of it worked. So one of the appointments with my dermatologist, he said, well, let's try UV booth. Now, this is not a sun tanning bed. Sun tanning beds give you UVA and UVB. UVA gives you skin cancer. UVB does not. However, UVB penetrates the different layers of the skin, and there's quite a few layers of the skin. And how my dermatologist explained it was that it tricks the skin into thinking that it's been damaged, so it has to start again. Now, with normal skin, it takes 28 days to go from embryonic skin cell all the way through the layers to shedding skin cell. And in the latter part of its growth cycle, it deposits a thing called keratin, which is a protein which gives skin its elasticity. And it's like a glue, it holds it together. When you have psoriasis, that process, instead of taking 28 days, it takes 3 days. And it doesn't have the chance to put down the glue that sticks it together. And so you get the flaking. And as more of it flakes, the more the skin wants to grow, and then it flakes some more, and then it wants to grow some more. And so it just perpetuates its own cycle. And so when you go under the UV lamp, it tells your skin that it's been damaged and it has to start again from brand new skin cells. That will take 28 days. Now, I don't have psoriasis anymore. I have a little bit. You can probably see it on my forehead, just little bits here and there. But if I go out in the sun for 10 or 15 minutes every day, I don't have the flare-ups anymore. And I wasn't going through a particularly stressful time in my life. I was eating a reasonable diet. There was nothing in particular that triggered it. There was nothing that I could have done to help it. So let's get back to the medical medium. Now, he told Kim Kardashian that she had high levels of copper in her system that were poisoning her. And she needed to detox her liver in order to get rid of the copper, because copper was a dermatological antagonist. Now, if you have high levels of copper, and this really doesn't happen in Western world anymore, and in fact it's usually the opposite, that we actually have lower levels of copper in our system. But if you have high levels of copper in your system, it is really dangerous. They admit you to hospital. If by any stretch of the imagination you think you might have copper toxicity, or perhaps low levels of copper, go to the doctor and get a blood test. A blood test is the only way we can tell if you've got abnormal levels of anything in your system. This medical medium put his hands around the outside of Kim Kardashian, and he said, there's something wrong with your liver, but your brain's fine and your heart's fine. If she had copper toxicity, neither her heart nor her brain would be fine if her liver wasn't fine. If the liver can't detox the toxins out of your body, they go straight to your brain. And then they go to your heart. So to have one thing wrong with you and not the other two, it's just not going to happen. So will having celery juices daily have any impact on her psoriasis? Really unlikely. Really, really unlikely. But if you have allergies, say for example hay fever, or you get asthma, and you have allergic reactions to things, maybe you're allergic to eggs, maybe you're allergic to peanut butter, 50% of people who went through allergy testing tested positive to celery allergy. And 50% of those were systemic. And systemic means it doesn't give you a rash or a bit of flushing. It goes through the whole body. Oddly enough, celery allergy is a pollen allergy. So when the celery plant is being pollinated, the pollens that are being used to fertilize the celery are what people are actually allergic to. So if you have a pollen allergy, you have a 50% chance of being allergic to celery as well. Now, you might not have been born with a celery allergy, but you can develop one. If you over imbibe in something, you can develop a sensitivity to it. So the University of Manchester have this fabulous website, and they do lots of research into allergies, and one of their pages is specifically on celery allergy. And let me just say this as an aside before I read this, that there is mandatory labelling if something has either celery in it or potentially come into contact with celery on all the labelling laws throughout the EU. So let me read you what the University of Manchester wrote. Local reactions in the mouth, such as itching, but also systemic reactions affecting the skin, the nose, the lungs, and the stomach, or severe life-threatening reactions, anaphylaxis, have been observed upon the ingestion of celery. Compared to allergic reactions to other fresh vegetables, the course of celery allergy is often more severe. So it tells me that the onset of the allergy is more severe and that the reaction is more severe. So you may start this course of juicing thinking that you're doing a great thing for your body, and you may end up with a celery allergy. Now, if you're in Australia or you're in the United States, there's no labelling laws against celery. So you're not going to know. Celery powder is used as a spice in soups and all sorts of things. You have a look at a tin of soup, there will be celery powder in it. You don't know what foods, if you go out to a restaurant, whether there is celery in it, and it can have dire consequences. So I don't want to scare you off celery. Everything in moderation. So have your celery juice, but it is not the panacea. It is not going to cure cancer. It's not going to cure psoriasis. It's not going to cure heart disease. It's not going to cure anything. But as part of a broadened, wide-ranging diet that includes lots of fruit, lots of vegetables, a moderate amount of meat and fish, then you'll have all the things that your body needs in order to function well. And if you have psoriasis, go and see your doctor. Get a referral to a dermatologist, somebody who's got a piece of paper to say that they have studied this and know the ins and outs of why it happens and how to cure it. Go and see them. I'm also not against mediums. We have so many questions about the afterlife and the spirit world, but if this medium is listening to spirits telling him that someone who's paying him good money has copper toxicity, needs a liver detox, and can do it with celery juice on a daily basis, then firstly he needs to give her money back. And secondly, he needs to find better informed spirits. I'm not against mediums. I am against somebody peddling a snake oil and preying on the vulnerable. And if you've got any health issue, any at all, go and see somebody who is qualified to treat that health issue. Don't rely on a snake charmer selling you snake oil, because this celery juicing fad could potentially kill you. Don't let it be you. This is another episode of the Nurses Hub. I hope this has been a bit informative. I hope this hasn't turned you off celery. I hope you continue to juice, although it's actually better to eat the whole fruit rather than just the juice. And I'll see you in the next video. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and share the love. See you later.